Test.
Oh, with these ones. Test.
Test. Testing.
Test.
Test.
Did that work? See if this one works. Test. Test, yeah.
Did you just test that last one?
Yeah.
I guess we're on. So, good morning and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting and Work Session for July 23rd, 2019. I'm John Hutchings, Chair of the Board, and to my right is, go ahead.
Ty Menser.
And let's start, no, right here then.
Thomasina Cooper, Assistant to Ty Menser.
Benita Beaumont, Clerk of the Board.
Vicki?
Vicki Larkin, Commissioner Edwards' office.
Ramiro Chavez, County Manager.
And on the bench?
Whitney Pearsall, Administrative Assistant.
Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer.
Thank you. And so we're going to start with the one-page agenda if you're following at home from the paper you got or the paperwork you got online. We'll review the draft agenda for this afternoon's 2 o'clock Board of County Commissioners meeting. Then we'll review the agenda for next Tuesday's meeting. But we'll start now with July 23rd, and we will call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock, and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Menser. Approval of the agenda and the board meeting minutes allegedly will follow. Then we have presentations, the first one being pretrial services. And Marianne Clear. Will she be here?
Commissioner, the Director of Pretrial Services, Marianne Clear, will come and introduce to the board a new staff member. Her name is Nicole Carbone, and she is the new Pretrial Services Diversion Officer. That will give you, I think you already met her, but that will give you an opportunity to hear a little bit more in detail her background, and hopefully you can wish her well on her new tenure here in the county.
Perfect. And then Marianne Clear's on for the next one as well.
And also for your consideration will be for you to declare the week of July 21st through July 27, 2019 as the pretrial and probation week in Thurston County. And Marianne will give you a little bit of a background related to that.
Okay. Then we have an opportunity for the public to address the board.
Yes, you may be expecting a group. They may be in support of the ordinance that you have for your consideration related to TCOM 911. Some of the stakeholders may be coming and provide testimony, perhaps in support of that. You also may be receiving testimony from Mr. Pettit. This morning he submitted some information that he's going to be presented to you this afternoon.
Thank you.
And I'm not prepared to go through this today, right now. We just probably have to see what Mr. Pettit has to say on this. But yeah, he will be submitting, as he stated in this email, is going to be submitting for the record an attachment. And also he has several questions he's going to be asking the board this afternoon.
All right. Thank you. Morning. Then we have the county manager's update. Oh wait, do you have anything you expect to come up on public comment today? Okay. County manager's update.
Yes, I will follow up on the public testimony you received last week, and it was related to yeah, you have public testimony from Mr. Powell, Mr. Blazer, and Mr. Costero, and it was related to the offering, perhaps, of their services, and included their equipment, how they can probably help in clean up and perhaps paint the existing courthouse building. We had the opportunity to get information from them, and Robin Campbell is going to reach out to them to get a little more specific information as to what the offer is all about.
All right, good.
I'm just going to be responding on those terms this afternoon.
Good, thank you, sir. Agenda item number 3 is the consent items A, B, C, and D. The first one is essential services.
Yes, for your consideration is for you to have a final acceptance of project number 25536, and that is in the public health building located in Lily Road. The project replaced the energy management control systems that were installed back in 2002, and the contract was with Delta Controls. And as part of any contractual documentation that we have with any contractor, there's always a retainage as part of the conditions of issuing the contract, where we make sure that that retainage is in place in the event some of the checklist items at the end are not met. In this case, everything has been checked and everything meets the specifications included in the contract, and at this point it's just releasing the retainage back to the contractor.
Any questions? Any questions? My question is this: it says in the motion, all legal requirements have been met. What does that mean?
So all legal requirements, and again, in terms of when we issue a contract, we issue a contract in terms of the specifications they need to meet. That will be a specific equipment, specific type of work that needs to be addressed, but also within the contract, they need to hire prevailing wages. And all that is part of the legal requirements that any contractor needs to meet when they do contracts with the county. And that is the intent of the language.
So this being on consent, we're moving to accept the project. Have all legal requirements been met yet?
Yes, they have.
They have been, okay. All right, thank you. 3B, Human Resources, appoint the Citizens Commission.
Yeah, for your consideration, I believe you had a conversation on this, is to appoint Ms. Karen White as representative from the organized labor to the Thurston County Citizens Commission for Salaries for Elected Officials for the term ending March 31st, 2021.
Questions? No. Anything? Perfect, thank you. 3C, Community Planning and Economic Development.
Also for your consideration is the appointment of Mr. Daniel Graves to the Historic Commission, and he's a representative for District 1. You also had a conversation on this particular appointment. If you do agree on this appointment, this will last until the end of May 30th, 2020.
Okay, anything?
No.
No. Got it, thank you. 3D, the auditor's report, the vouchers. Did you have any questions on the vouchers?
No.
I went through them and they seem to be fine. Thank you, sir. We're done with that. Consent items. Agenda item number 4 under department items is information technology, or IT.
Yes,
go
you reviewed this item last week, Commissioners, and this is a request to increase the authorized budget for project number 25563, which is a cabling project in the Family and Juvenile Center. Back in September 4th, 2018, the board authorized to go ahead and issue the contract to the contractor for a maximum amount of $152,312.99. And that action did not include authorization to have an additional 10% to cover any unexpected overruns. In this case, we did encounter the unexpected overruns by $7,736.15, and the authorization is for you to consider additional budget. We do have budget, it's just the authorization of expenditures in this case.
Okay, any questions? Good. Any questions? Good. And will Dennis Osorio be talking through this?
Yeah, he will address the board on both items 4A and 4B.
Good, thank you. 4B, Authorized Information Services Director to advertise.
You also reviewed this item last week, Commissioners, and we moved this item from consent agenda to our department's item, just to make sure that Dennis will give a little bit of a background for the public as to how important this particular application, as we call the ERP, the Enterprise Resources Planning System, You heard a little bit of additional information from the Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell, as to how much work and effort we have gone through in determining the business needs and the business requirements. And I think we're in the position to go ahead and issue a request for a proposal to receive responses as to how any potential vendor meets the business requirement that we have outlined in the request for proposals. At least from my point of view, as I mentioned last week, there's a fundamental change as to how we have been approaching in the past in purchasing any IT applications. And I'm very hopeful there will be a very successful venture.
Good. Questions? No. Takes us to agenda item number 5, Central Services, and this is a 5-year tenant lease.
Yeah, for your consideration is to consider enter into a 5-year lease with the Thurston Mission Behavioral Health Organization, and also include $13,084.75 per month in 2019. This is on the property located at 3285 Ferguson Street, Southwest in Tumwater. Also, we know that as a triage facility. Again, the dollar amount is just for the 2019. This has been included in the budget. For future years, if the board approves this 5-year tenant lease, they, on a yearly basis, will be negotiated the lease amount with the BHO, and that amount will be included for your consideration in the budget. So for 2020, you will see that amount coming up when you review the budget here in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Anything? Thank you. Now we're to the county manager, agenda item number 6, a resolution for a levy.
Yeah, for your consideration, commissioners, we discussed this proposed resolution where this is related to House Bill 1406. Bill 1406 was passed by the state legislature in 2019, and what it does is allows for local jurisdictions to access a portion of the sales and use tax that goes to the state. So this is not a new tax, and is not a new encumbrance to the citizens. It's just taking a portion of the already allocated amount to the state. So the county can levy a full amount of 0.0146% of that sales tax to go to the state. And that is if we have what we call a qualifying tax. In this case, we have the treatment sales tax as a qualifying tax, so we are allowed to cover all, get the maximum of that allocation. There is a little bit of a nuance between what the county can do and the other local jurisdictions. The proposed resolution for you is to take advantage at a county-wide level of the 0.0146%. Local jurisdictions, the cities can take their own action and get access to the same opportunity taxation that is triggered to, that is that needs to be used for affordable and supported housing. That is really the gist of this taxation. So if you consider taking this resolution of intent to levy the new taxes, as a county-wide, the county will access again the 0.0146%. If the city of Olympia takes an action similar to what the county is doing, because the Olympia has a qualifying tax, the home taxing they have, they can access the entire amount of 0.0146. At that point, the county will not access that taxation within the boundaries of the city of Olympia. If the city of Lacey takes the same action, it's a little bit different. The city of Lacey does not have a qualifying tax. In that event, they can only access half of that, which is 0.0073%. And the other half will be accessed by the county. So that's how it's a little complex. And I believe last week you received a background as to how much that will generate in terms of the taxation. I know that Commissioner Hutchins was not here last week, so I just want to give you a little bit of background and give you the opportunity to ask any questions, because it is a little complex taxing. So this is the first step in the process, is for any legislative authority to pass a resolution of intent. And the next step, hopefully by the end of the year, will bring for your consideration a resolution for you to take formal action to access then those taxations. I provided a copy of the final draft resolution last week to all of you, and I did receive comments from Commissioner Edwards that he would like to probably change some of the language related to on this ordinance. So let me pass this around again.
Any questions? Oh, hang on a second. Do you have any questions?
Not
What were
yet.
you?
I haven't seen the
Okay.
proposed changes.
Go ahead,
I would recommend that we make a change under, to item number 6.
Thank you.
And where the description, a resolution of intent to levy a portion of the sales and use tax currently, I would like to insert currently, collected by the state in the unincorporated area, would be another insert of a word, of the county for affordable and supportive housing.
Okay. So Romero, I'm going back to you for the resolution. What changes have been proffered, or have they been made?
So on the
Commissioner
resolution
Edwards.
that I just gave you is the same resolution that I put in your desk last week. On the title, I said a resolution. Commissioner Edwards had a recommendation that he wasn't feeling comfortable the way this is stated. So let me read that how it is right now, and then I can provide an option for you.
Thank you.
So it reads, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Thurston County, Washington, declaring the intent of the Thurston County to, let me emphasize this part, to adopt legislation to authorize a sales and use tax for affordable housing, for affordable and supported housing, in accordance to Substitute House Bill 1406. Commissioner Edwards didn't feel comfortable in the word to authorize a sales and use tax. I believe I understand what he was coming from. I didn't want to get to the point of agreeing to disagree, but I'm proposing to change that to read as follows. It will be to a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Thurston County, Washington, declaring the intent of Thurston County to adopt legislation to levy the sales and use tax for affordable and supportive housing in accordance to Substitute Bill 1406. So in gist will be to eliminate the word to authorize a and replace it with to levy the.
Do you want to clarify that any further before we have questions? Thank you.
Yes. I would like to see that that this verbiage says currently collected. So however you want to put currently in there, the same as I put currently in the description of item number 6, a resolution of intent to levy a portion of the sales and use tax currently collected by the state, because it's already being collected and we are not imposing a new tax. We are just going to legally draft a resolution to allow us to retain that 1/100th of 1% or whatever the number is. It's a very small amount. And divert that so it isn't going straight to the state and then being kicked back. I guess it's going to come straight to the county. So it's just a clarifying issue, so that there's the constituents don't.
So I'm sorry, you would like to change the description of the item or the action?
For the resolution?
Both.
So on the description, you would like to just verbalize on what your proposal is. It will be a resolution of intent to levy a portion of the sales and use tax currently collected by the state.
That's right.
Is that okay?
No, I mean, yes, but you have, I'm going to get to Ty first, and I have something to add to that.
Well, I support the intent of what we're trying to do, but I'm just looking up the word levy because
Yeah.
the word levy to me means the same thing as the one imposing it.
L-A-V-Y rather than L-E-V-E-E.
Well, yeah, that's another question I had.
Yeah.
We're not building a levee to
Yeah.
stop water from flowing, right? I think it should be L-E-V-Y, but the
Yeah.
verb, it says, the definition of levy is impose, so to impose a tax. So we're not achieving anything. If we don't want people to think we're imposing a tax, we're not accomplishing that by using the word levy. We need a different word. And I think Commissioner Edwards is on target when he says, with his verbiage. In the number 6, though, you added, the second piece of what you added was in the unincorporated county.
Area of the
That I
county.
wasn't sure if that's right, because aren't we also
Yeah,
going to
we
sweep
need
it from
to-
the incorporated counties to the extent that those incorporated areas haven't?
Well,
So
that's
that
true.
piece of it, I don't think should be in there.
And so it will be in Thurston County, eliminating the unincorporated areas, yeah.
But the first part of what Commissioner Edwards wants, I agree with, and I think we should avoid the use of the word levy, because that's just exactly what we're trying to not convey the misimpression that we're imposing this tax.
Well, another option will be a resolution of intent to access.
Or retain. Retain a portion of the sales
Yes.
tax. We're retaining it.
That's better.
Yeah, anything to clarify it, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Robin?
With all due respect,
Will you introduce yourself too? Because you weren't here
yes.
for the introduction.
Good morning, I'm Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager. And with all due respect to the intent, that you don't want our citizens to think that we are going to collect additional money, the legislation clearly says impose a tax.
We talked about this last
So
Oh, did you?
in my opinion, the legal way to do this is to follow what the law says.
Is this resolution, did you or whoever draft this from whole cloth, or were you using, is somebody circulating a proposed
Elizabeth.
draft, or?
I drafted the original, and I worked with Elizabeth, and this is the final draft.
Okay.
And it was aligned to what my interpretation as well as Elizabeth's interpretation of the new law.
And we went through, I don't remember exactly what, last week, I remember it's like it said impose in one place and it said something else in another place, and I was questioning why it was different, and I think whoever was here explained that it was tracking exactly out of the statute. So I think the statute is a little,
So maybe we can parcel the conversation a little bit. And the description of the action is one thing, and what I'm hearing is you would like to change that to read as follows on the description. A resolution of intent to access a portion of the use and sales tax currently collected by the state in Thurston County for affordable and supported housing.
we can do that because this is our language.
Right. So that's what I want to make sure that you're comfortable with the description of the item.
And it would be in the under description and action.
And then I'm going to go to the action
Okay.
and revisions. So are we thumbs up
Okay,
on the
what's
description?
the finished product?
So the description,
Okay,
it states a resolution of intent to access a portion of the sales and use tax currently collected by the state in Thurston County for affordable and supported housing.
okay. I'm good with that.
Yep.
Would you just repeat that for me, please? One?
Yes.
Repeat that, wait, hang on. Repeat that one more
Yeah,
time,
so
please. Thank
we're just going first on the description.
you. Okay.
So in the descriptions, as I understand, follows like this. A resolution of intent to access a portion of the sales and use tax currently collected by the state in Thurston County for affordable and supportive housing.
Okay.
Good?
Okay,
Yes, good.
now let's move to the action.
Okay.
Is move to approve a resolution declaring the intent of Thurston County to adopt legislation to access a sales and use tax for affordable and supported housing in accordance with Substitute Bill, House Bill 1406, Chapter 38, Laws of 2019.
And that will be mirrored in the resolution then?
Maybe let's work on the action, and then we go on the resolution. What do you like to have on the
And
resolution?
we wanted access, not retain.
Well, that's the question is, whatever you
Retain a portion of the sales and use tax currently collected by the
Yep.
state.
Either one's fine with me.
I like retain.
I like retain as just even more
It's more like we're keeping it. Not, we just want access to it, we're keeping it. In my head, anyway.
Yeah.
But we're adopting this allegedly this afternoon, so the resolution will be
Adjusted.
mirrored.
Well, that's what, on the language of the resolution, let's have a conversation because that's prescribed.
Now, going back to what Robin said, the state says levy. I think, is that what you said? They said levy.
I'm looking at the
I don't think we need to
legislation
do exactly what the
now.
state says. It's the same intent.
What the state, it says adopt legislation to authorize a sales and use tax.
Maximum capacity, yep.
Authorize the retention.
So maybe-
So here's what it says. In order for a county or city legislative authority to impose the tax under this section,
Impose the tax. I'd
the
say that-
authority must adopt a resolution of intent to adopt legislation to authorize the maximum capacity.
They're thinking a different mindset. I've got to give them that deference. They're not thinking as a county would with our constituents. They're just,
So they're thinking within the legal construct of a government to collect a tax.
right. But they're saying that we will authorize the county to impose, and we're not imposing a dadgum thing other than we're accepting their allowance of a retention.
The county is imposing a tax and then deducting that amount from the tax otherwise required to be collected and paid to Department of Revenue. And that's also straight out of the law.
So the word impose is not included on the resolution.
And
I
that's a good
think that
thing.
at this point, you're just adopting intent, that the intent language could be a little less aligned with the law, if you will. But when you go to actually enact the legislation as authorized by the state, then I would suggest at that time we're a little tighter with the language.
Jeff, do you have anything to add to this? Does this impact you in any way? Yeah, no, you got to come to the microphone. I'm sorry. County Treasurer, and please introduce yourself.
Is this on? Jeff Gadman, Thurston County Treasurer. So what is actually happening here is a transfer of ownership of that money. You're not imposing a new tax. But what you're doing is you have to, right now, all of that's collected is property of the state of Washington. What they're authorizing is that the county can stake a claim to a portion of that. So what you have to do as a legislative body, and I'm not an attorney, but what you have to do, this is my understanding of taxation and how it works. The county has to say, we're claiming that portion of the tax as county property or county, we're taking jurisdiction over that money. Right now, the tax is being currently collected. You're not collecting, an additional amount will not be collected from citizens. But the county actually has to establish the legal authority to have ownership of that money.
So does that change, like the portion that's already collected, that we are retaining it? Is something like that verbiage around that, would that clear things up worse?
Well,
Or better?
I have a suggestion for you.
Yes, sir.
I think what the action is what perhaps you may want to elaborate as to what the intent of this is, because the resolution is prescribed in terms of the authorization. So my suggestion for you on the action will be as follows. Move to approve a resolution declaring the intent of Thurston County to adopt legislation to retain a portion of the currently collected, let me back up. Okay. Move to approve a resolution declaring the intent of Thurston County to adopt legislation to retain a portion of the sales and use tax currently collected by the state for affordable and supported housing in accordance with Substitute House Bill 1406, Chapter 338, Laws of 2019.
So I'm going to turn real quick to the non-attorney, Treasurer Jeff Gabin. How's that sound?
To me, I think you're meeting the intent of that first step. I definitely make sure that Elizabeth is okay with that language, but to me, it sounds like from what I read last week of this legislation, you're taking the correct first step.
And is there a time constraint to this?
Yes.
There is.
Well, I believe my suggestion is for you to consider adopting this resolution as soon as possible.
Okay.
And that is the reason why it's before you today.
But do we need to run it by Elizabeth, or do we have time for that?
I have run it by Elizabeth.
Oh, you have?
You're not, if I understand what just happened, we'd already changed the description and
So
action.
the action is...
You're proposing we don't change the resolution
I'm proposing
as is.
not to change the resolution because the resolution is prescriptive the way it is. But I suggest that for you to feel comfortable on the action is where you describe a little more in detail the intent.
Okay, so we do the intent, we do the motion,
The action?
or the action. Someone, perhaps, will say, wait a minute, the intent, retention, allowing access, blah, 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 versus the resolution that says to authorize a sales and use tax.
What if this is just an idea, what if we don't mess with everything that's in here, but we add a sentence, which may not have any legal meaning, but it makes us feel better and hopefully the citizens feel better at the end of that resolution. So we use the authorized word so that it's legally operative, but we just add a sentence after laws of 219 to say something to the effect of no additional tax monies will be collected from the citizens of Thurston County, or something that just clarifies that piece. That's the important piece. No addition, we're not collecting any additional money.
But this is not an additional tax or something.
But it doesn't mess with the statutory language that precedes that. Kind of achieves both.
So you're suggesting to add a new whereas?
I was just adding it to as an additional sentence after the resolution.
The first paragraph.
It's the intent to authorize sales use tax in accordance with Substitute House Bill 406, Chapter 338, Laws of 2019. No additional tax monies will be collected from the citizens of Thurston County.
Maybe
Whereas, blah, blah, blah.
suggesting a new whereas right after that. Whereas this resolution that does not impose a new sales and use tax to the citizens of Thurston County. Will that work?
Either one's fine with me.
The only thing that's going to happen on this is you're going to be reading this in a voter's pamphlet somewhere, sometime in the future, that you raise taxes. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm trying to get around. Or in a statement by a...
And that's what we're trying to clear up.
That's all. So if you're satisfied with it, I'm okay with it. You guys are.
You're okay with what I just suggested, though, adding a...
Yes, I am.
Or an additional sentence or an additional whereas, doesn't matter if it stands out.
Whereas whatever would work to clarify.
So I will add a new whereas on the resolution as I suggested. Okay.
Smart people. Anything further on this one then?
Let me go back on the action, just to make sure you feel comfortable with the action. Okay. So the action, I suggest it may be read as follows. Move to approve a resolution declaring the intent of Thurston County to adopt legislation to retain a portion of the sales and use tax currently collected by the state for affordable and supportive housing in accordance with Substitute House Bill 1406, Chapter 338, laws of 2019.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so
There you go.
I'll work with Lavanita on that. So in this item, we'll revise the description as I stated. We revise the action as I stated. And on the resolution, we will add a new whereas, making a reference that this particular resolution does not impose a new sales and use tax to the citizens of Thurston County.
Good, thank you. Anything further?
At the Regional Housing Council meeting, which I sat in for Commissioner Hutchings last week, somebody passed out a pretty good, it's complex, and what Ramiro was trying to lay out is laid out pretty well in this like 2 or 3 page, and it was produced by the AWC,
Association of Cities.
So the language is a little confusing because it's directed only to cities. You kind of have to substitute in your mind county in there, but in terms of laying out the structure of how who gets what based on the choices that they make, it's pretty well laid out, and if I'll give my copy to your assistants.
Yeah, I put a copy in your box. I'll put a copy.
Yeah,
in the box.
if you're confused, that's the most succinct, clearest summary that I've read so far.
Gary, anything? Good.
Okay, so we'll do those
Boy, that
changes.
was good. County Treasurer Jeff Gadman, thank you, sir, for your insight.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. That takes us to 6B, ballot measure.
For your consideration, Commissioners, this is a proposed ordinance for you to consider putting a ballot measure on the November 5th, 2019 general election for the citizens of Thurston County to consider increasing an additional 0.1% of the sales tax imposed in Thurston County with the intent to change the radio communications related to TCOM 911. As a matter of background, you may recall the derailment that occurred back in December 2017. And first responders from Pierce County and Thurston County.
Derailment, yeah.
The derailment, and supporting and responding to that incident. During that response, the communication among the first responders between Pierce County and Thurston County was very difficult. And the reason is that Pierce County is already in a digital system, and Thurston County is in an analog system. So the way the communication happened, as I understand it, it was an individual in the middle who was serving as a bridge, which created delays and perhaps provided some unexpected hurdles as to how the first responders responded to that incident. You had Keith, I can't remember his last name very well. The executive director from TCOM 911 came and provided additional information related to this. And this is the result of new legislation, because the legislature, knowing the needs across the state, I believe they authorized an additional 0.01% of the sales tax. Because there is already an existing one. This is in addition to the existing sales tax. One of the requirements of this ordinance, of the new law, is that all the parties and all the stakeholders who have an interlocal agreement with TCOM 911, they need to affirm the terms and conditions of that agreement. The Board of County Commissioners reviewed this item and affirmed the terms and conditions of the interlocal agreement that we have with TCOM 911 back in June 25th, 2019. And also, all the jurisdictions, as well as the fire districts, have already affirmed the terms and conditions of the agreement, except for the cities of Olympia and Lacey. The cities of Olympia and Lacey, I believe the councils have reviewed this item. They're in the process of doing so, but I have not received a formal confirmation from them. So the resolution before, the ordinance before you has a little bit revision as to what we have seen in the past.
I might add, I'm not sure exactly how you worded it, but the level of lack of communication between our first responders and local and jurisdictional surrounding first responders was completely unacceptable and dysfunctional, to the point that it added a level of difficulty in providing services to victims and the public. So this is one of those things that is just absolutely paramount, and has been for a number of years, paramount importance, delivering proper emergency services to our citizens and to the public.
So if you draw your attention to the first page of this ordinance, the last two whereases, it speaks about that. And let me read that for you. Whereas TCOM 911, and most of the parties have affirmed the terms of the contract. Thurston 911 Communications amended and restated intergovernmental agreement for communication services dated October 2010. The following parties, the cities of Olympia and Lacey, need to affirm the terms of the emergency service contract. Thurston 911 Communications amended and restated intergovernmental agreement for communication services dated October 2010 before a proposition may be submitted to the voters. So that is the statement that I have worked with your attorney to make sure that is stated, because as for today, I have not received a formal confirmation from both cities.
I believe they're both going to take affirmative action on this evening.
Yes, but you may consider taking an action before they do it.
Right,
And I just want to make sure that
Because of the timing.
And that was my question is, are we pretty confident they're going to do that?
Yes.
Yes, and that is the safeguard and the ordinance, just to make sure that you are
Okay,
covered.
go ahead, Ty. Anything?
I'm good.
Good, okay, oh, yeah, I'm good.
And Keith will be this afternoon presenting this item in more detail.
Okay. Then we shut down that meeting this afternoon with some wrap-up items. Do you don't have anything to wrap up with, Romero,
No, Commissioner.
for today? Okay. And that takes us to the Board of County Commissioners agenda for Tuesday, July 30. That's next Tuesday. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Gary Edwards. And then agenda and minute approval, presumably. And then an opportunity for the public to address the board, which might be just a bit premature again, unless you have any items that you think somebody might be coming and speaking about.
No.
Not
Next
aware.
week.
No, not aware.
County manager's update for next week.
I will not be here, Commissioners. I'll be out of the office next week. So Robin will sit on my behalf.
I will also be gone. I'll be at a conference for New City Transit.
Thomasina?
Here.
Vicki? Gary? You here? You here, Gary? Next Tuesday?
I'm here, but why are we doing this? Have we got some timed issues
We
on
have,
here?
well, look at that. We have the consent items and one IT agenda.
Yeah, and you have a public hearing at 3 in the
We have a
afternoon.
public hearing at 3.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'm sorry, is the IT agenda, is that, or item, is that like time sensitive?
Not necessarily.
RFP for website
But
content.
considering that you will be here to hold a public hearing
Anyway,
anyway, you may consider having a short agenda.
you might be able to,
I'll turn to my seatmate.
Give those citizens 4 or 5 minutes to weigh in.
Each have 15 minutes.
I think I've had the shortest time in conducting a meeting, but I think I'm about to lose on the 30th.
Do you want to have this meeting?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I mean, if we need to have it, we need to have it.
We'll have a public
You don't
hearing.
need to have the meeting. You need to have the public hearing. That's
But what
the
about
difference.
Dennis, got an issue? over there that-
Dennis' item
Just
can wait for
RFP.
another week.
It is time sensitive?
We can change the schedule.
No, if it's
No,
time.
we'll do it.
No,
We'll
I
ju- We'll
think
con- we'll continue to have the meeting
Yeah,
then,
sure.
and everybody else's.
And we can have a
absence.
little more public input from
You
citizens.
covered for us, so, or for me, so I can cover you, and don't worry. Let's see, first thing then is consent item A, the auditor's financial services report, we'll get that. And department items, information technology, RFP for website contact management system.
Yeah, this particular item is included on the 2019 budget, and the intent of this is to secure proposals as to how we can enhance and revamp our website and our presence going outward to the citizens. I think this is a long time coming, at least from my perspective. There is a need to, in a way, consolidate the feel and look of county businesses as how the citizens see inside of county government. There is a little bit of different ways as to how we present information from different offices and departments. And I believe this is an opportunity just to consolidate, again, the look and feel. It is not an intent through this action or this proposal to manage the specific content that each office and department is responsible to provide. It's just, again, providing a consistent framework as to how that information is provided to the citizens. That is the intent of this.
Okay.
And Dennis is here to add additional information if you like.
Questions? Nothing, nothing, nothing.
I'm good with that.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. Now moving on to county manager items. Oh, you won't be here.
No.
Are you passing anything on to Robin?
Yes, Robin will be covering.
Nothing at this time.
Nothing at this point, okay. And then we move into a public hearing. You want to talk about the public hearing?
Yes,
CPED.
this public hearing for your consideration, Commissioners. You review this item, which you set the public hearing from June 30th. And this is related to a resolution to authorize what we call development agreement related to plat subdivision Sienna 2. The reason behind this is as any proposal has a timelines related as to when those proposals can be either providing a building permit and all the different steps related to the permitting process. In this particular case, the developer has already invested in the infrastructure and has been facing delays because of the pocket gopher. So at this point, they're not in the position to move forward, and their current permit is expiring on August 1st, 2019.
Okay.
So this particular action is for you to consider hearing public testimony to get into a specific developers agreement with the developer that will extend this plat for I believe right now is to January 1st, 2021. And that is the intent of this legislation. You also, you may recall back early in the year, you did add on the development code docket to extend the platting process to address these particular issues. However, staff is not going to be ready to bring this to you before August 1st to address this particular issue. And staff is ready to bring those proposals before you before the end of the year, 2019. You may ask as to how many of those have been cut between the expiration date as to when you may see a formal proposal from staff. And as far as we know, this is the only one who is having this particular deadline. You may ask if this particular action may set a precedent. The board in the past has already exercised this development agreement with the intent that you consider the different circumstances that each development may have to go through. I believe, and this is just my personal perspective, that this is a good thing because you you give some help to the developer, which they have already invested. Absent, for you not to hold a public hearing and the permitting process lapses on August 1st, 2019, they will have to start the process all over again and they might be facing a financial burden associated with that action.
Okay, anything on this public hearing?
No, I guess the various times that we've addressed this issue, it's never been explained, like, are they going to get through their HCP pocket gopher issues, or is this, are we kicking the can down the road and they're still got obstacles, or
So
where does all that stand?
on your agenda later on, you have an item to review the U.S. Fish and Wildlife letter related to our HCP. In a way, you do provide some leniency if you approve this proposal to extend that, with the hope that at that time the county will have their own HCP,
Okay, so they're
and that way we can move forward. The question is whether it's January 1st, 2021, a good date or not. But I will check with staff whether that is adequate or not, because the last thing they want to do, in case I hope we don't face more delays on the HCP, and I hope by then we should have a plan approved and in place. So this becomes a moot point.
Yep, okay, understood.
And to be added, we have minimal impact on whether we have a successful HCP with the federal government.
Yes, and item number 2 today,
Yeah, we'll check.
we'll review a little bit more in detail
Yeah.
what you've received from
On
US Fish and
Sienna, do you have
Wildlife.
any questions on Sienna?
No, sir.
So the options after the public hearing is either move to accept it, approve the resolution, or just close it and discuss it more later.
There is a time sensitive on that because, again, is August 1st where
This year.
the permit lapses for
Okay.
this particular applicant.
So it's move to approve or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
mean-
also, I don't want to come across that I will put you on the spot in a way, because if the public testimony is such that you don't feel comfortable taking any this action, you don't have to do it. But if you are planning to do it, this will be timely to do so.
Got it, okay.
But certainly, you do always have the option not to do it.
Right.
Well, I just want to say, I understand the time sensitivity, and, if there wasn't a time sensitivity, I'd appreciate having, a chance to weigh in, but
Yeah.
understanding that there is, I was inclined to support this based on public testimony I've heard so far. I don't know what you're going to hear at the public hearing. Defer to you guys to weigh that and make the right decision. Won't bother me if you feel like you need to move based on the time sensitivity.
Okay. Good. Gary, anything on that?
No, good.
All right, thank you. That shuts down the public hearing for next Tuesday. We're going to move right into proclamations and awards. We have something from the county treasurer. Stand by, please. Please stand by.
Excuse me, I'd like to beg your indulgence, Jeff Gadman, County Treasurer again. I'm scheduled to present to you today item number 1 after you get through your initial items here. I thought I had allocated enough time, evidently I didn't, I apologize. I would like to request that I be rescheduled for a future time. My schedule in August is wide open, so whenever you would like to have me.
For item number 1, Capital Lake Project?
Yes.
How long
How
will
much
it
time
take
do
you
you
to
need for
provide
that?
that feedback?
It won't take me hardly any time at all.
What does that mean? My wife says that.
I can do it in 5 minutes, really.
Okay. Wow, good. She doesn't watch this, so I can say that.
Can we just do it now?
Let's do it. Let's do it now. Yes,
Oh,
thank you.
thank you.
Hi, Debbie.
So I am the county representative on the funding and governance work group for the Capitol Lake Deschutes Estuary study that's going on right now to eventually figure out what is the best option for the body of water that sits below us in the Capitol right now. We met on June 7th, and we had a presentation by Echo Northwest staff. They have been retained to study the economic picture, to teach us about economics of funding a project like this. There's two components. There's a capital funding to whatever we're going to do, because even if the lake is retained, there's a cost to that. And then funding the eventual ongoing maintenance of whatever is determined. During the alternatives phase, which is what's going on right now, we're just brainstorming funding ideas for both aspects of the project. At our next meeting, which is going to be a joint meeting with the executive work group, which one of you is a member, we're going to start to nail down exactly what options we really want to focus on. Some of the ideas have been an LID, which could serve the capital part of it, but then there's going to be a need for ongoing funding for ongoing maintenance of whatever gets determined. There's study right now, what happens to the sediment, because sediment is coming down the river all the time. Right now it's tending to be retained behind the dam, which is lessening the frequency of needing to dredge the port. One of the big questions is if the dam goes away and an estuary is created, then how much of an impact does that have on the port? Is it going to require more dredging and that sort of thing? That's part of the EIS study that's going on right now. The EIS study is running in parallel to the funding and governance work group with our group, and the idea is at the point where the EIS is presented, a final option or final preferred option for funding and governance will be presented at the same time. Part of that process is going to be a second joint meeting between the funding and governance work group and the executive work group prior to adoption of the final EIS. So we were given a pretty extensive education on economic theory. Part of it is if I'm asking for money from you, what benefit am I offering you? The goal of the funding and governance work group is to come up with something to where it's mutually beneficial, that whatever project is finally determined, the funding for that is going to mutually benefit the people that are being asked to pay for it. And part of what we're studying and what this Eco Northwest group has been asked to study is how wide of an area does anything that's chosen on that body of water benefit? Does the city of Lacey benefit? And there's an argument that yes, city of Lacey residents do benefit. So, but then it's a matter on the funding side of, do the people that are closest to the lake or the properties that are closest to the lake benefit the most? And then you have a graduated funding mechanism as you spread out geographically. Is there, more of a equanimical benefit to everybody in the county?
That's a cool word.
Thank you. A couple of syllables there. So anyway, we're continuing to study. Right now I don't have anything definitive to tell you because we're still asking questions, but I want to assure you we are looking at what is going to be most beneficial to the citizens without causing harm. And I think that's our basic premise, is cause no harm.
Ty, questions?
Funding governance work group, is that the name of?
Yes.
And how many people are on it?
We have, it's currently 8 members, and there's representative from Tumwater, Port of Olympia, Thurston County, City of Olympia. We've asked Lot Clean Water Alliance to come to the table, and Department of Natural Resources is also at the table.
It's pretty exciting, honestly, because from what I've learned about this, like what you're doing is probably more important in a sense than what the big group's doing. I think in terms of the unanswered questions and I didn't realize you guys were doing this parallel process. I heard people a few months ago hoping or thinking that we should be doing that. So that's really good that I didn't realize that had come together.
Yes, it is, and it's coalescing. There hasn't been a lot to report to this point. As we start getting closer to definitive decisions, there will be a lot more to report, and there will be a lot more action taken by this group.
Okay.
My concern about this as we move forward, this body wrote a letter to Enterprise Services asking that they review the complete Deschutes River as the river flows in. Have we received word back from Enterprise Services that they are willing to undertake that? The last I heard, the claim was there was not enough money to look at the total river.
Which is the last I heard, yes.
Okay, so have we heard anything?
We have not received a formal response to your letter, Commissioners.
Okay.
And I also heard, because the letter was asking to expand the scope of work to include analysis of chemical contributions upstream of the Deschutes River. And at least the feedback on official letter received, that they didn't have all the funding from the legislature, and they're very constrained as to how they need to reduce the scope of work. So that was not, does not include the recommendation.
So my concern is that 50 years ago, the Deschutes River was crystal clear and had, I don't know if it had any algae or not in it, but I can tell you, for the citizens watching, if they want to go take a look at the Deschutes River, you'll find that there's algae that looks like it's somebody's hair flowing in the river, all through that river ecosystem. I contend it does not make any sense to move forward and making recommendations on what to do with the lake if we don't look at everything that goes into the lake. And if we don't review from the headwaters to the mouth of the river where it flows into the lake, I think we're just wasting the taxpayers' money because we will not have solved any problems. The last time there was work in the lake, and I think it was around the early 80s, in which the lake was dredged, and that was to kind of fix it up at that point in time, but that's been quite a while ago. And so that's my concern, that if we keep going as if we're just going to disregard a large segment of impact to the lake, we're just wasting the taxpayers' money. So I would like to have that message at least brought to them, that what's the point of doing this if we're not going to do it to solve the problem? And we're not going to solve the problem if we don't have all the facts to study to make recommendations. So that's my concern.
So I've made that recommendation to the committee. I sit on that committee. We've sent a letter as a board, and that is not part and parcel of what you're discussing financially at this point. So where I agree, I don't think Jeff has much input on that, do you?
No, I mean, we always comment on aspects that we think are important to members of this committee. The group that I'm with, the funding and governance group, is advisory to the executive group. We have no decision-making authority. So any final decisions are going to be made at the executive work group level.
So I have two questions, and that is, you talked about up front, Jeff, either option, keep it as it is with funding to maintain it and or estuary, but they're still being considered the hybrid. So is that being, that'll be factored in as well. And then the second was you used a term, and I hadn't heard that before. Well, you used two terms I hadn't heard before. There is an economist that is on, not economic development person, but an economist,
yes,
recognized for their vast experience in the economy, local, and the ripple effect all the way out. And is that individual, he or she, on board now, and that's what you're working from, is information from the economist?
Yeah, it's actually, the company is called Echo Northwest.
That's what it was,
one
Echo
word.
Northwest, okay.
And the representatives helping us are Adam Domansky and Lorelei Jantunen.
Okay. And so they looked at it all the way out to Lacey and beyond.
They will be, yes.
They will be, okay.
They just recently started their efforts, and they will be, and that'll be part of the reporting that comes back to the funding group.
Initially, a few months ago, when we discussed this, the executive committee was looking at, the consultant was looking at hiring an economist, and people were proffering names to them, not somebody tied to the estuary, tied to this project, Capital Lake watershed such, but from outside this area, that would not, and I was pushing not just locally to Olympia and the downtown area, but the port and lot and the recreational boaters and beyond, because it ripples all the way out. It's not just tight knit like that. So I'm glad to hear that that's will be or is being looked at. Anything further?
I don't think so.
Anything further? Go ahead.
Yeah, just one other thing. Because we're streaming this live, and sometimes the public does watch this, I'm not only concerned that we get that point across to every group that is studying potential impact or cost on the citizens. So even though you're not directly affected, I'd like to get the message out to those folks that there is an issue. Why move forward with this large expenditure if we're not going to find out what the problem is? And I've mentioned the algae in the river now that didn't used to be there. I would just like to point out that in the headwaters of the Deschutes, the timber interests working under regulatory authority from the Department of Ecology and the DNR and the Forest Practices Board are applying thousands of tons of commercial, I'm just going to say chemicals because I don't know the makeup. A lot of it has to do with fertilizer, but I'm sure there's herbicides and different things in there as well. On the headwaters, this chemical is being applied by helicopter, thousands of tons, and it has been for the last 50 years. And I believe that it is the possibility that it is contributing to this problem. And if we don't look into this through water quality sampling and that type of activity, I feel we're just not doing the best job we can do for the taxpayers here in Thurston County. We kind of got our head in the sand if this is not studied in depth. So
We have our head in the sediment.
yeah, we'll have our head in the sediment. Okay, good enough. Enough said on that topic. But I think it's a big concern that has went unstudied for the last 50 years. And the studies that have taken place, I believe, it's kind of like the fox in the hen house. It's been done by the industry. So.
Thank you, Debbie. I mean, Jeff. It's been a quick 5 minutes. Thank you, sir.
It's
Appreciate
actually
it.
funny, my sister's name is Debbie.
Thank you, sir, for
very
coming in.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Chuck.
That takes us now to proclamations and awards. Oh, I like this one.
Proclamations. Oh, good morning. It's La Bonita Beaumar. Upcoming August proclamations. The National Farmers Week has had some staffing challenges, and so the person that I was working with, I am no longer working with. She's not there.
She
So-
left?
She did. And so now I've been left a couple of messages with John Nason, and I'm waiting to get a call back or an email.
It's National Farmers Market
Yes.
Week. Okay.
So the potential of it being on August 6th is still there. I just need to get the draft resolution, draft proclamation from the market.
Okay.
And as far as National Preparedness Month, we're a little ways out, and staff will be submitting that AIS
Okay.
next week.
Questions or comments on the proclamations?
No.
Nothing? Okay.
No, sir.
Thank you. Advisory boards and commissions.
Yes, in your packet, you received a letter from Katrina Van Every, the chief clerk for the Boundary Review Board. And there's a letter there for you to review.
I read this letter. It just seemed like,
Yeah.
it didn't seem like, it seemed like it was informational.
It is.
And it suggested somebody, but there's no application yet or anything like that.
No, I have sent the gentleman, Mr. Hughes, an application as of yesterday.
Okay.
So this is just for information?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, we had a letter, I don't know that we ever addressed it in this context. We had it might have been an email from, regarding the Citizen Salary Commission and how we're going to address our open vacancies. And there was a quotation of a statute that said we had 30 days to fill vacancies.
It
And-
does, and on,
I think the email that you received was from the
Ms.
clerk, Ruth
Ms.
Elder.
Elder.
Yeah.
on today's agenda, item 3B, we have an appointment of Karen White as the organized labor
Right.
for that committee.
But that came up after.
Yes.
We
So-
still have a couple of vacancies. And
Yes, we do.
I'm just bringing this up because I understand we can't manufacture human beings, but it seemed a little different that this one specifically said we had 30 days to fill it. So maybe, I don't know, this is my first time through this, but do we have an imperative to seek people out, or is there some different thing we should be doing given that there's a statutory imperative to fill a seat in 30 days?
So let me give you a historical perspective. Last year, when the commissioners were exploring the option not to accept the recommendations of the Salary Commission, at that point, we had 3 vacancies. And the question was, our attorneys explore whether that creates a quorum, meaning the 10 members considering their vacancies, was that decision null and void, and the decision was not. And I believe at that point, the attorney said, the commissioners need to make a good effort,
Good faith effort.
to fill those vacancies. But you're right. I mean, if you don't have any applicants to consider, the Salary Commission will continue to have vacancies as long as they have a quorum. And I believe at this point, with this appointment, they do have.
We need legal and business, right?
Correct. And our PIO, Brian, can give you an update on the social media that he and I have worked on to.
Dominique, Public Information Officer with the board. Yes, I've been working with La Bonita on getting information shared on our social media channels about these openings for the Salary Commission. We've had some comments and interest in it, but I don't have statistics I can provide on how many people have actually applied based on those postings. But we are getting the word out there about it.
Okay. Any further?
No, sir.
Under new
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Robin.
Just
Robin.
regarding the Salary Commission, when the labor position was vacant a few years ago, we had our HR director actively advertise, if you will, through channels to other HR people seeking someone, and she recommended someone to come in. So should we also send a notice to the chamber saying we're looking for a business person to participate, and send a notice,
TCB,
perhaps to the bar?
the Bar
And
Association.
say we're
bet.
looking for someone.
That's
to
what I'm thinking,
Yeah,
participate.
the
because-
widest dragnet we throw out there will capture
Sure,
more.
but, as great as our social media is, not everybody looks there. We're looking for
yeah.
specific people or specific skills to fill these positions.
Absolutely.
I will work with Brian to accomplish that and let you know.
Thank you. That sounds good. Good idea.
What about the BOE? Lee Ruddy, alternate vacancy?
Yes, you have an application in your packet from a Mr. Lee Rudy. for that alternate position.
And is this one of those district-specific?
District 3.
3. But district-specific, that board is not.
It's not, okay. And let me look, it's an alternate, it's not a reappointment,
Pardon me?
not a reappointment?
No, it is not. This is a new application, and this is a completely vacant position. Has been for quite some time.
Well, at face value, looking at the application, he seems qualified, but I don't know the gentleman.
No.
I don't know him. I didn't have a problem with what I saw based on.
You okay with that?
I don't-
Okay. And then Judy Stratton for the Area Agency on Aging.
Have we got word back on that yet, on her from area agency?
This is a new one, isn't it?
Yes.
It has
The
been in
one
the,
that Commissioner Edwards is referring to was already,
we already appointed a person
Right.
that you had confirmation on. This is a new application, and it's been in our packet for a couple of weeks. This would be the second week. We received it on a Sunday. So I personally have not heard back from the area
Okay.
agency at this time.
We haven't heard back yet,
And she's from Rochester.
but we will.
Okay, so we're not, are we thumbs upping her or not yet?
I don't think there's a time issue on this.
Okay. Anything on that?
No, I agree. I guess I'm getting the two confused because I was remembering that we were waiting for some input from the group.
But we
This-
made that appointment.
We made that appointment,
Already. This is a
okay.
new one.
Okay.
Is that person also from Rochester? I don't know, I just feel like I'm getting.
Oh.
Anyway,
I don't
it
remember.
doesn't matter though, right, where they're, what district? Oh, no, there is not a district-specific necessity there, so
But if you knew this person,
I
that
don't.
would satisfy me.
I don't.
Okay.
Do not, no.
Okay.
All right,
That's
we'll
all
let
I
you know
have
then.
for now.
Thank you, Lon. That takes us to the PIO check-in, so I'm turning to Brian Dominique. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for Thurston County. Just a few quick updates. The Thurston County Fair is approaching. Wednesday, July 31st is the opening day, and it'll run until August 4th. Tickets are on sale now at thurstoncountyfair.org. There you can also find information on their concert series, entertainment, and fair hours and more. And then the 59th Annual County Commissioners Pancake Breakfast is on Saturday, August 4th from 8:30 to 10 a.m. That's a free event for the community, and I encourage everyone in the community to come out. It's a lot of fun. Get to have the county commissioners make pancakes, meet some of the staff here at Thurston County, other elected officials. It's a great time.
Don't go on. How many taxpayer dollars go to that pancake breakfast?
None.
Thank you. Okay.
It is
That's
completely.
on the commissioners and county manager.
And isn't that on August 3rd?
Third,
Saturday?
August 3rd, Saturday, August 3rd. Correct.
you.
Thank you for that correction.
From 8:30 to 10
Yes.
at the county fairgrounds, free to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
with fair admission.
What's that?
Free with fair admission.
Oh, with fair admission, okay. How much is admission?
So if you get your tickets now, you can get a full fair pass, which is access to the fair Wednesday through Sunday for between $10 and $21, and those prices are based on age. But just a general day at the fair is $7 for an adult, $6 for seniors, and $5 for children over the age of 12 to 4, or 6 to 14, and then
Okay.
kids under 5 are free.
Great, thank you.
And then I am supporting emergency services in the development of the 2019 flood bulletin. I sent out a letter to the commissioners last week for review. That's going to be included in that flood bulletin. That's going to be mailed out the second week of September. It goes to anyone who is subscribed to Thurston Community Alert and anyone who lives in areas prone to flooding. This includes the 100-year floodplain, a groundwater flooding area, a flood of record area, and a maximum dam failure inundation area. So anyone that lives in those areas or subscribed to Thurston Community Alert can expect to receive a flood bulletin sometime in September. And then tomorrow, we will be doing our continuity of operations plan tabletop exercise here in room 280 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. This is to basically train our continuity of operations plan. This is something that we would implement in the event that we cannot do our normal operating business for whatever reason here. And then
Who is leading that?
James Yates from Emergency Services will be facilitating the exercise, and I'm working in coordination with him. So
Okay.
I'm kind of the lead for the office on the COOP, but he'll be working the exercise for us. And then just a quick update on the courthouse videos. Those are in final draft now. I provided edits on each of the videos to Thurston Community Media, and they are making those changes. I hope to have those videos either this afternoon or tomorrow. Pending any major editorial changes on those should be ready to go through the review process. Our goal is to have those ready to go before Friday.
Hope is not always a good strategy. Can we tell them to get them done?
Yes, yeah, they're well aware that we need them done. Right now, we're just going through editorial changes. They're very minor, so it shouldn't. There's nothing where we need to do any retapings or anything like that.
If we get them today or tomorrow, then when do they go out?
So I will review them. Then I have to send it to the review group, which includes our prosecuting attorney, the county manager, assistant county manager, and then the people who were involved in the videos. Once we get approval, I'll publish those to the courthouse webpage.
Are we talking before August? I know it's out of your control, but we're still talking about, do we envision before August?
I'm envisioning this week.
Okay, good. Good grief. Go keep going. You done?
Yeah, pending in your questions, I can close my brief.
Ty, you have anything? Please stand by. Do you have anything for the PIO regarding what you're doing or need done?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more item before we take a break. That's briefing, public hearings, the revisions to Article 2, Food Code Enforcement Briefing.
Yeah, last week, staff from Public Health and Social Services provided a briefing to the commissioners. That was on July 17, where they outlined a process as to how they currently manage and the violations related to restaurant inspections. And from their perspective, they see an opportunity as to how the current code can be changed to allow more flexibility to the restaurant owners to comply with some of the findings as a result of their inspections without leading so quickly to restaurant closures. The proposal before you, and attaches the briefing for you, is for you to provide direction for staff to go ahead and start developing a policy. That policy will be vetted with some of the industry stakeholders, and as a result, they will incorporate those changes and eventually will lead to a public hearing where you consider changing Article 2 of the Public Health Code. And again, the intent is to give more flexibility to restaurant owners as to how they can probably address some of the findings they get as a result of restaurants inspections. At this point, for your consideration is just to give your direction to go ahead, staff, start developing this policy, and at some point that policy will come back to you on a proposal for you to consider changing or amending Article 2 of the Public Health Code.
So at this point, that is just a thumbs up direction to start working on it?
Yep.
But we have no idea which way it's going to go?
No.
Okay, questions or comments on that? But it is to ease
That
or
is the
assist our
intent.
business owners,
That is the intent.
but not jeopardizing public health.
Is to provide a little more flexibility and to give a little additional tools to work with the restaurant owners and
Okay.
to address.
Art, will you introduce yourself, and then we'll have questions, I'm sure.
I'm Art Starian, the Environmental Health Division Director for Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, and I'm here in case you have any questions about the briefing and the summary that Ramiro did. I think he did a good job of describing what's being proposed. And the intent is to provide some flexibility, but also some clarity too. Right now, our current code, it kind of says, here's the process we go through, and it's kind of one size fits all for restaurants that are having that are, I guess, having bad inspection days or doing things that threaten public health. What this is trying to do is provide some different options for dealing with those depending upon the severity of the violations that are being found. You know, in other words, what the public health risk is, and provide some tools for staff so that they can work with folks to achieve compliance. However, if it's a really bad inspection result, that it also is clear when a facility would be closed. So the intent is to, again, provide some flexibility, but also some clarity to the food industry and to the public about, you know, when enforcement actions would be taking place and what type they would be. So we think it's been overdue. It's something we would like to work with the community and the regulated industry on, because we know that as often is the case, our best efforts, we find out that when we work with folks a bit, we can do a better job, and we also want to avoid surprises. I know there's been things in the past where we've developed policies and said, here's what we want to do, and we haven't informed the public quite as well as we should have, and so we're trying to make sure that by working with the industry folks and the public, we avoid surprises and do the best job that we possibly can.
Great.
I'm good. We had a briefing. We just
Oh,
didn't
I
want
missed
to take
that.
any, we didn't want to take any, send any direction out without your input, so.
I appreciate that. Art, does that include food trucks?
Food trucks fall into that as well. So it's everything that is basically regulated and permitted by the local health jurisdiction, any type of food establishment.
So it would give them greater flexibility.
Yeah, and flexibility and I guess some certainty too. Again, if you cross this threshold, then there's an action that needs to take place. Right now, again, the current code is not really clear on that, and so we want to be clear so that everybody understands what could happen if they're not meeting up to the standards as far as food safety.
So if the code is not that clear, where do we err on? The side of flexibility, helping them out, or on the side of, ooh, we're not going to allow anything because we don't
I think
know?
what it is, the process is kind of over, perhaps. I think when there's a bad violation, the administrative process can take a while, and so I think that's a concern, and I think also it doesn't provide this sort of flexibility. What staff they're working with folks very well, but the way that we'd like to work with them, and in fact we are trying to deal with them, the code doesn't really address it that well. So we're trying to make sure that the code allows us to provide the sort of assistance that we want. Again, while also providing clarity for when there's a poor inspection, or when there's someone's doing something really hazardous, or when there's a violation, I guess a hazardous situation like sewage backing up or something like that. So I know I answered it both ways, but that's part of the problem that we're facing.
Okay, got it. Anything else?
No, I guess, I don't think they're changing the 5-second rule to 10 seconds.
No.
No, we're not doing anything like that.
No, we had a good briefing the other day.
All right. Well, thank you for consideration of me. I appreciate that. Thank you, Art.
Okay, well,
Thumbs
thank
up.
you, and then I'll let Sammy and our staff know, and we'll be back to you later.
All right, I'm going to color this 10:30. We're taking a 10-minute break because we still have a fair amount to cover. So 10 minutes, we'll be back at 10:40. Thank you very much. All right, 10:40. Welcome back to July 23rd, 2019 Board of County Commissioners work session. And now we're jumping into the commissioners' items. Item number 1 we already discussed. So item number 2 is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife letter regarding our habitat conservation plan.
Yes, Commissioner. I'm not planning to go in detail of this review, but I just want to inform the public you have formally received a letter from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on July 17, 2019, where they outline some comments related to the draft habitat conservation plan that we submitted just about a year ago. And the letter outlines 3 elements they may have concerns with. First is related to the 10% mitigation methodology that we included on the plan. Secondly is the functional acres, as how they see how we assume is included in the plan. It is also outlined that the 10% doesn't include a rationale as to how we encompass just the mitigation for the pocket gopher and all the other species. And thirdly, the comments that we have related to the 30-foot radius in terms of the impact when the construction happens. They stated that the county itself submitted a previous recommendation that it was 60 feet, and the current plan includes 30 feet. And again, from my point of view, I believe this is the long-awaited letter from the service. At least we have the parameters in which the U.S. Fish and Wildlife see the plan. And we're going to be working with the staff. The staff is going to be working also with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to start addressing in detail the concerns outlined in this plan. And also, perhaps an options the staff is going to bring into the board as to how the HCP, the plan itself, could be modified before we submitted a final draft to the service.
Is that last comment, like, for example, related to build-out projections and
Yes.
what options we have there?
I think all the options will be perhaps looked at by staff. Right now, we have, I believe, 88% build-out. That means that 88% of the areas identified as a pocket gopher habitat will be developed in the next 30 years, and the result that has a financial impact on the mitigation cost. That may be an option as to how some of the thresholds can be changed. And again, this is what I believe the first step of the next step, meaning now we do have a framework to work with, and staff will bring recommendations to the board as to how we're going to plan to address those comments before we submitted a final draft.
I'm guessing you do, because I know I do. Go ahead.
Any time frame?
We just received this letter last week on Friday. The director just came back, of CPED just came back from vacation. So I will request the board to give some time before I can answer that question.
Okay, so more to come?
More to come, absolutely.
On a topic that's been going on for quite a while.
Now they will start turning again on this process. So it will be periodic updates to you, and the staff will come back and keep you abreast as to some of the potential options that you may see on the revised plan.
I guess I would like to just comment. I think that the federal government has us over a barrel. I believe it's federal extortion tax in the end. I think our Constitution prohibits the taking of property without compensation. I don't know that the feds can just do that. At some point, I'd like to see some citizen sue in favor of loss of due process and a taking without any compensation for doing so. But that's yet to come, so at some point, I hope we get to the bottom of this.
In the opening, your opening remarks, you said we submitted our HCP just about a year ago, and it actually was June 21st, 2018. So about, what, 13 months ago.
Mhm.
And we've been sitting on pins and needles waiting for the federal government to respond to us, and what they responded with was just about what I expected, which to me, in my opinion, is their opinion when it comes to what is protecting or protective of the species. And again, this is, in my opinion, the federal government taking or protecting more property owners' property than not allowing the property owner to do with the property as they see fit. And we, again, are the only county in Washington State, entire county, that has this type of restriction. And I thought the methodology that our CPED team worked through with the commission was more than prescriptive, more than adequate to protect the species, and we have the funding available and such. But when they come back with, yeah, but, I just find that exceptionally annoying and frustrating. So again, it's a process we need to work through, and I don't suffer from it, but our citizens, certain citizens, suffer from this lack of decision or approval from the federal government. Again, the only county in the state that needs to deal with this, and I find it very frustrating. But we got to move on with the process, and I just don't like, as Commissioner Edwards said, I don't like anybody holding a gun to my head, and that's how I feel right now.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to point out one other thing. It's the only county in the western United States dealing with this when it comes to the Mazama pocket gopher. And the range of the Mazama pocket gopher is from the California border to the British Columbia border, and from the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific Ocean. And they've claimed that there's 14 subspecies. I can tell you, I was in Korea more than 50 years ago, and when I got there, the Korean population was roughly, they were a third world country, and those folks were about 5 foot tall and weighed about 100 pounds. 3 generations later, they're now about 5'4" and weigh 125 pounds. But they are still all Koreans from the Korean Peninsula. And because those folks in the north don't get the living conditions that those folks in the south get, that is the difference. And I do not agree with the U.S. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife's determination that these are different species because of different characteristics. So I know, that being said, we don't have any control over that, but my sympathy does lie with the citizens that are being taken advantage of, and I do feel it's a federal extortion tax where they cannot take this property without some type of oversight and regulation, and I think they're in violation of the Constitution. But we still have to deal with it, just like you said. So we don't have to like it, but we have to deal with it.
Do you have anything to add?
I have a different perspective. I support the Endangered Species Act. I'm not a biologist, and I couldn't comment on Commissioner Edwards' perspective on how subspecies are threatened or endangered. But what I'm hoping is that we have unity in this board of moving this plan forward, because this is the path forward for our citizens. So I think that we're all committed to getting this done, and I voted against reopening our docket and adding certain important items just because of this, and more than anything else, our comp plan as well. But I wanted to make sure we had staff capacity when this letter came through and this direction came through, that we had the capacity to move forward and make the changes and we may have some decisions to make as a board, and I want those to be made. And I want this moved forward. I will be beating the drum to move this forward for our citizens, because to me the HCP is the balance between the important principles behind the Endangered Species Act as well as the important property rights and our development interests and economic development interests of Thurston County. So this is the path forward. We've got it. We may not like it, but I don't think we have much that we can do to change it. So I think we need to recognize that path forward and get it done.
So I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I'm for the Endangered Species Act when it seems reasonable in protecting bugs and butterflies and birds and fish and rodents when it's reasonable. And we did work hard at this, and to have the federal government say, no, it's not hard enough, and tell me I need to bake a cake, but not tell me the recipe and how to bake it. And then when we submit a cake and they say, that doesn't taste good, redo it, but not give us what they expect us to do. Again, and it's not me being impacted or us, it's our citizens being impacted with the restriction of their own property. There's got to be a balance in there, and I'm looking for that balance. I am committed to making this work somehow, but now I see it going on for another dadgum year, which I find very frustrating.
I just, maybe to just clarify, I too recognize the Endangered Species Act has its place in our society. But for those folks in the viewing public, you don't have to take my word for it. You can go to the University of Nebraska. That is the repository for much of the study information that's been gathered over the last 50 or 60 years by the Department of Agriculture. And they say you cannot get rid of this pocket gopher immediately when you quit poisoning it. They are still developing processes to eliminate the Mazama pocket gopher elsewhere, not in Thurston County. And that's been going on. They've been spending millions of dollars trying to eradicate the Mazama pocket gopher. And now, over that last 50 or 70 years, and now the U.S. Fish and Wildlife is spending millions to protect that same animal. Studies are going on yet now by the USDA how to come up with a proper poison that is not strychnine-based, because strychnine-based poisons affect the food chain quite a ways out. They're trying to figure out ways to control this animal, and because it is very damaging in agriculture, utilities, does chew on utility lines and that type of thing. So there's a lot of reasons that this should be reviewed, but in the meantime, we have to work within the law as designated, and so we're going to try to do that. But it is so frustrating to think that we've got to do this for another year.
Before I get to our CPED director, anything further?
I guess I would just ask Josh, maybe you're going to get to this, but, do you feel that this letter gives your staff the direction, the specificity, as kind of, I like Commissioner Hutchings' analogy of the cake, the recipe. Do you have enough of the recipe to make the changes that you think will satisfy the issuance criteria that have been laid out by U.S. Fish and Wildlife? Or do you think you're still going to be,
So, Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. Let me kind of back up a little bit and I'll answer that question as we build to it. The first thing I'd say is yes, we did submit our habitat conservation plan to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in July of 2018. And during that period, from that point forward, our staff has worked diligently with the federal government to better understand the pieces where they have questions. And so the letter that we've currently received is a lot shorter than it could have been because of the hard work that our county staff engaged with on the federal government. So it's difficult to see this letter. We know now the parameters that we need to address, but thinking about the work that's been done in between that period, I think that there is some level of success here that we should recognize in terms of the time that our staff has put into this topic. Going forward, this letter, we requested this very specifically because we are looking for those parameters that we can then address with staff and then bring to the Board of County Commissioners for your input. The 10% methodology, the different spaces that are impacted in the 30 to 60 foot areas. Those are conversations that we as staff need to have with you as the elected officials. And so to answer your question, Commissioner Mincer, I would say yes, this does narrow the scope of the decisions that need to be made. The other thing that I would say is I appreciate the county manager's opening on the different pieces of this letter and the overview. And yes, I have been on vacation for the past week. It's been amazing. I saw parts of the country, Yellowstone and Grand Tetons, and it's nice to be back here in the Pacific Northwest. But while I've been gone, our staff has continued to work diligently. We received this letter while I was away. They have ideas on the HCP in general that we'll be reviewing this week and will help to you very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything further?
Nope.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Number 3 is Fair Board correspondence and discussion.
Yes, you have received correspondence from Ms. Ann Shipley, from Ms. Peggy Zimmerman, and also Susan Hidden and Randy Hidden. The last two, I believe, they're one is a member of the Fair Board, and the other one was an attendee to the last Fair Board. All correspondence that you received had raised concern as to the interactions that occurred after the meeting involving Ms. Shan Verdon. And Ms. Shan Verdon is was appointed by the board to serve on the Fair Board last year. As you may recall, Commissioner Hutchins and Commissioner Edwards, it took a long while to go through that appointment. And also there was some suggestions that perhaps some of the then existing board members were not necessarily suggesting for you to appoint Ms. Verdon. They had some concerns at that time. I just want to make sure that you have that correspondence before you, and you have the opportunity to discuss I'm not going to walk through specifically each of letter. I hope you have the opportunity to review that on your own time. And based on what you've heard, is open mic for you.
When did we make this appointment?
Was
it last year?
It was probably a year ago.
A year ago.
Yeah.
And there was some issue at the time. but
September
we-
2018. Thank you.
Okay, we erred on the side of caution and giving someone the benefit of the doubt. So with that, let me open it up to Ty first. Any questions or comments?
I think this person ought to be removed from the board. I don't know what the process is. We've got people here who are ready to quit. I know Ms. Zimmerman and Ms. Shipley have been on the Fair Board for a really long time. Mm-hmm. People don't volunteer for these things in order to deal with these kind of negativity and histrionics. This is the Fair Board. This is supposed to be a community working cooperatively together to try to do good, and I would hate to lose 2 or 3 excellent Fair Board members because of this behavior. I don't know anything about what you said about what the controversy was when the person was appointed. My opinion is based solely on the 4 letters that I read about this incident, but this is enough for me to say, in this context, under these circumstances, this person should be removed.
That's decisive. And I'm saying that in a positive sense. Go ahead, Gary.
I guess now that Josh is back from vacation, and he does kind of oversee that fair activity out there, I'd like to hear at least a report back from staff, whether that be HR, maybe the director that oversees that, which is Josh, to at least look into it. I've also read the letter. I'm disappointed in the activities alleged. I don't really disagree with Ty. I just think there is a due process that possibly we owe all parties concerned to see. I've not went into this as an investigation of my own to look into this. I'd rather have staff make a recommendation back to us that, and if that recommendation is to go, then I think that's what we need to do. But I'd like to know all the facts, and however long that might take. It probably won't take too long to look into it.
please. I'll come on up and I'll share why you're sitting down, my opinion. When we made this appointment, there was some controversy last year about it, and it was, okay, we'll give someone the benefit of the doubt in the appointment. But having read these letters and from whom they come, I'm ready to remove someone as long as the process is respected and we do it the right, proper way. I don't need to do it. I don't need to jump into it. I don't need to know the facts. I just need recommendation from staff, but I'm ready to make a decision before we cause any more damage to our fair board. So with that, go ahead. Do you have anything, Romero, before we come to Josh?
Let me perhaps answer the question Commissioner Minster stated in terms of the process. Certainly, you can take an action as soon as today if you choose to remove any member from any committee that's within your purview. And I believe the board has exercised that in the past. And the question that I ask is, what additional information you need from the staff in terms of hearing the other side? You want us to be, obviously, it is pretty descriptive of some of the interactions Ms. Vernon participating in with some of the staff members, and mainly related to Commissioner Edwards. Would you like for staff to reach out to Ms. Vernon and get her side of the story? Is that what you're looking for, or something else?
Well, I guess I'm not adverse to taking action, but I always like to hear both sides of the story. I guess that's the law enforcement background in me. And as long as those facts are relatively the facts, I'm fine with it. But all I'm saying is I always like to hear both sides of the story. That's all.
I agree with that. I mean, I just wasn't sure what we would do. But that's all I can, to answer your question, that's all I can think of that we're missing is maybe having staff discuss with Ms. Vernon what her side of the story is.
I'm not missing that piece. I'm sorry, what did you do?
But, I mean, I could go either way on that, but I think that's not, I was concerned about the fair's coming, and I don't know how much this group is still working to get, are we, if we don't take action, are we compromising collaboration and actual work that needs to get done for a successful fair this year? Or is the timing of this such that we need to do something right away, because otherwise I'm not sure what the fair board does the last, we're down to the last, 2 weeks? So I don't know. So I guess I would rely on maybe your perspective, Josh.
Hang on. And I heard Ms. Vernon's side of the story last year because it was a controversy back then, and it was lobbied. And like I said, I erred on the side of benefit of the doubt. And now this is coming to a head to the point where 3 people are coming forward. I'm ready to make a decision. I don't need any more point counterpoint. I don't need an interview. I don't need to chat with anybody. I'm ready to make a decision. But whatever the board wants to do, I'll respect that. Go ahead, Josh.
So Joshua Cummings again, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. The Fair Board is, yes, one of the boards that resides under the purview of our department, along with the Historic Commission, the Planning Commission, and a few others, SWAB, Stormwater Service and Stormwater Advisory Board. One of the things that we expect of our citizen adults that volunteer their time on these boards is that they respect one another. I'm not sure how much more information we could provide other than what's been provided by the letters from the 4 different citizens that provided information to the Board of County Commissioners. I would say that I had a conversation with Shannon Vernon last week. She did provide her perspective. One of the things that her and I discussed was there is always room for improvement, and the speed at which improvement can be had is sometimes needs to be measured by the amount of improvement that can be taken by the folks that are engaged within the different items. So let me say that in a different way, we are not as good as we can be on the Fair Board, but we're better than we were, and it's in process. And we look to all folks that are engaged in the citizen volunteer activities to work with one another. I am open to providing an opportunity for Ms. Vernon to provide her comments via email. I think that there is some interest in that. But I would say that to answer the question about impacting on the Fair Board and the fair event that's coming up, the mission of the Fair Board is the fair event. we have separated kind of the two different pieces of the fair and fairgrounds. The fair event is the 5 days of fun that happens the first weekend in August, as you heard earlier from our PIO. And then the fairground rentals happens the rest of the year, and we've taken that on for our fair coordinator. So to answer the question from Commissioner Mincer, I think that there is some statements within the citizens' comments that say that there is an impact to the fair event that's upcoming. I can't make that determination given the purview of the fair board is to do that planning and implementation of the fair event. But I would look to the folks that know how this process goes to answer that question.
Well, based on 3 new pieces of information, one is you've already talked to this person. Second, there is an impact on the fair this year. And the third, it's slipping my mind, but essentially I'm ready to take an action on this. The third is that I didn't understand that there was historical controversy from the get-go. I didn't know anything about that. That just adds to, your comments just add to that.
Okay. I wasn't aware that you had talked with any of the parties involved either. So now I'm satisfied. If you've talked with, you've read the email or talked to some of the folks that are on the board, you've talked about the issue with the person being complained about, apparently, right? You talked to that person. So I'm good with whatever you would say.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, that's all. I mean, I didn't know that you had talked with anybody else, so now I know.
Before I left for Yellowstone and Grand Tetons, Craters of the
I hope
Moon.
it didn't ruin your vacation.
So if I may, and I'm going to hopefully save Josh to be in a...
No, I've got, actually, I got
You got a recommendation?
So here's my statement, and then maybe the county manager can follow on to help clarification. From my perspective as the director, I haven't recommended appointments, and not this one even in particular, in September of 2018. I respect the direction of the board at that time that added her to the fair board. I am not currently recommending her removal either. All I'm saying simply is, here's the information that's been provided to us by the fair board members that were there. I wasn't there. I've spoken with all of them. But I respect the Board of County Commissioners in your decision-making process, whatever it may be.
Along the same lines, I think it will be, at least from my point of view, will be very difficult for a staff who is tasked to work with a board and a commission to provide a recommendation to appoint or remove a board member. That is a very difficult position to put staff on, so that goes on you. And you are in the position to make that decision of appointment or not.
So if this board right now were to say yes or no, when would that take place?
First, let me ask the question. Are you in agreement to remove Ms. Burton from the fair board?
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
If that was to take place, who on that board, or maybe no one on that board, but are we going to create a void or a vacancy at our upcoming fair that's about a week or so away that's going to cause a problem regardless of what we do? I mean, are we going to cause a problem by making a removal? And, maybe this was done in the heat of the moment or whatever, but does this person hold a crucial position on there? And if so, do we have a way to fill that void? Because we don't want to be detrimental to the fair itself and to the upcoming 5 days that you talk about, that they work all year in preparation to this 5 days. I don't want to damage the 5 days that are coming up. That's my concern.
I guess that would still be my question, is there's that request for more information, as well as there was a request from Shannon Vernon for her perspective on the event. Is there a request from the board for me to receive that information? Like I had said previously, what I know is what the folks that provided letters have provided, is that they think that there is an impact to the fair event that is negative. September of 2018 is when Shannon Vernon was appointed to the fair board by the Board of County Commissioners. She has served in the role of vice president during that period. As the letter stated, there was not a nomination for her to continue in that capacity. So to answer your question about the void that may be left, that's an answer that can only be provided by the fair board. If you'd like to have me receive that information, I can.
Well, I'm just worried about any detrimental action that's going to take place if we do something, are we leaving a void that makes the fair less fun, I guess, you know? You're talking about a fun 5 days, that's all I'm wondering about.
If I may, I think if the board is in the position to removing Ms. Vernon from the board, my recommendation for you is for you to take an action sooner rather than later, because waiting until the fair event is taking place, knowing that perhaps that's the action that you may be considering formally, that may create, at least from my point of view, a difficult situation.
Or 1, 2, or more vacancies.
Right.
Yeah.
And are we in a budget situation at all where we might have to hire an additional person? I don't know what these people do out there. I mean, I don't know that during that assignment. I know they're all contributing towards doing good work for the fair.
And volunteer.
And volunteer, but are we going to be stuck with a vacancy somewhere that we need to address? Because in a short time, the fair is going to kick off.
No budget impacts for the citizen volunteers on the board.
Okay, so we're going back to your question. Is the board ready to remove?
Yep.
I am.
I am.
So the next question will be, will you like to see this item this afternoon or next week?
I'd like to see it this afternoon.
This afternoon.
Why, I guess, do we always do that, or do we just make a formal decision at a public meeting like today? Do we need to have it be an agenda item or anything?
Yeah, as you have agenda items to appoint individuals, you also need to have an agenda item to remove.
Okay.
I just don't see any reason to postpone it a week even.
Okay.
Let's get her done. Anything further, Josh?
Sure.
Thank you, sir, very much. And again, welcome back.
And you will see this item on that consent item. Usually
Okay.
appointments and removals are not part of the department.
All right,
So
thank you.
it's just to,
Will, after this afternoon, the board's decision, will you let the fair board know? All right. Thank
and
you,
we'll
sir.
follow up with a formal notification.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Number 4 is the SWAC motion response.
Yeah, and this just, I'd like to bring to your attention a motion the SWAC committee passed back in July 3rd, 2019, is attached to your document. And I'm not planning to go item by item on this, but we are preparing a draft response for your consideration. Hopefully I can put that for your review, that response, along with this backup information before I leave on vacation this week. Anyways, I just want to bring this to your attention that the SWAC provided a formal motion associated with this. It's similar elements to what you'll receive comments from the different cities. So.
Now, I have a meeting with a member of the SWAC board, and apparently you're going to be in attendance.
That is correct.
I have a meeting as well. Probably the same person.
Do you?
Vice
Are
Chair.
you attending all 3? So there's a common
I have been
message?
invited by the 2 of you. I have not been invited by.
You're welcome to.
Okay.
So if you
So
can.
a common theme, a common message is being put out then as well. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this?
I mean, I'm gone Friday.
Okay.
I'd like to see the response.
Yeah, I hopefully I can get to you by tomorrow.
Because this third element of this motion goes beyond what was requested by the letters of the municipalities. So that's a new, I mean, we've had a very consistent response that we've all approved to the city's letters, but this third element of the motion is a new element. And we may not have a consistent response, or I don't know what the response was going to be.
So I have drafted a proposed response for your review. Yes.
Is that different? Is that new? I thought that was sort of the part and parcel of the same extension stuff.
We've been requested to go out a year or so, just
Yeah.
so that there could be a more robust RFP, but
Well, this
we've
is
never
3 to
had a
5.
formal request to extend the contracts for 3 to 5 years in order to,
You did receive a request, as you may recall, from
Mike
the
Stedman.
Chair Mike Stedman, which you also responded on similar terms. And I think the initial request were for 5 years.
Okay.
I've learned a lot more about solid waste since then. That was several months ago.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
on
yeah.
this. Well, haven't we already extended the current contracts?
Not yet. Well, we extended one to align because the expiration date between the different contracts, it was lopsided. So
Yes.
you extend only one to align the expiration for both contracts in 2020. So staff and the proposed response is going to bring back to you for your consideration to extend that for a period of time, both beyond the 2020.
Are you recommending that we do extend?
That's the recommendation that I suggested in the responses that I provided to you, because extending is really to give us time to go through the RFP process. Here's a little bit different. They're saying wait and extend 2-3 years and then begin with the RFP process, which is different.
Mm-hmm.
The proposed response is for us to continue with the RFP process as the direction of the board that you have provided to staff. And the extension is related to give us time to go through the RFP process in a more systematic approach.
I guess my question is, how come I keep hearing about Cowlitz County doing something or not doing something, and that we should base what we do on what they do? I don't get it.
So my understanding is that Cowlitz County is in the process of, they had apparently some issues on the management of the landfill, and it was managed by staff, county staff. So the Board of County Commissioners for Cowlitz County give an extension to staff, give them some expectations as to how they can probably bring the operations to a certain standard. If that is not doable, then Cowlitz County may consider getting into a public-private partnership with a private entity could manage the Cowlitz County. As a result of that, the argument perhaps I've heard is there is an option as to the county could take advantage of that potential action by the Cowlitz County to access the disposal of our waste on the landfill. I think we briefly went through this option with you, and I believe the contract that you may be considering awarding can have enough clauses that if something comes up, such as the Cowlitz County as an option, or any other landfill that you may see fit, the contract will allow to access those options. But it's, to me, it raised a concern, the holding an entire RFP process until we know, or depending on the decisions of the different county commissioners, depending on that specific landfill, I don't think it's adequate, and I don't think it's fair for the citizens of the county.
Go ahead.
I just hope that when we have the meeting because I just feel like there hasn't been, I mean, I would like to hear from SWAC, and I don't know what my outlet is to get that information. Maybe this meeting with Ms. Sinclair will be that opportunity, because she's a vice chair, I think, or co-chair.
She's the vice chair, yeah.
I've heard your explanation of what you just said, and it makes sense to me, but we keep getting letters from them proposing this other, and I'm just wondering, can we put the pieces together? I mean, can we explain your approach with the parameters of the current RFP process that we're moving forward with? Does that satisfy their concerns about us getting locked into something that would be way too expensive if Cowlitz County were to become available? Can we get on the same page about that, or is there something about that SWAC is just not okay with? I just haven't gotten the right people in the room to figure out whether or not are we all on the same page here? We're just not thinking as creatively together, or is there an impediment to us being in line here? And that's what I would like to just get that answer, and then I would know what my decision point is, because right now I just keep feeling like if we had SWAC sitting here and we had ourselves and we had Ramiro and we had Jennifer, we might all agree on what the right approach is. But it's very frustrating to get these letters, and they're not here to hear what we're trying to do, and then we get an angry sounding letter that we're not, but it's like, maybe we're not that far apart in our goals. If we can, I think the only motivation behind what I hear SWAC saying would be accommodated by what you're saying. We just don't want to get locked into a 20-year contract when the transportation costs could be cut by 67% or whatever, from Goldendale or Oregon to Cowlitz County.
Is your meeting with Ms. Sinclair within the next day or two?
It's Thursday, I believe.
Before Friday, then, before you leave. Okay, good. Go ahead.
And
Sorry.
and exactly what you're making a statement is the limitations that we have with the current contract. Because the current contract doesn't give us any flexibility, and we're finding ourselves that we don't have anything in the contract that will allow us to address the current conditions of the market. And this is, I believe, is an opportunity not just to look at just the transportation and disposal, but also the collection as well as the processing of this of the waste. What appears to be a little bit also misinformation, at least from my point of view, the contract, you may consider awarding, is not going to have an impact on the tipping fees and the impacts to the citizens. That will not change. Because whether it will cost us more or less, if the current cost is the benchmark, the impact to the citizens, they will not see it, because the tipping fees will not change as a result of this contract. Because that's a different process that you need to go through, whether you would like to reduce or increase the tipping fees, meaning how much any customer pays for tonnage of disposal at the Waste Recovery Center, as well as any other jurisdictions they have, is based on the tonnage established by you and the fees, and those will not change as a result of this contract.
Go ahead.
I don't know very much about garbage, and I readily admit that. I've only been on that committee, and they've only met once a month for the last few months, and I think we're headed towards getting things ironed out. My concern is, I'm going to go all the way back to 30 years ago when I was in the National Academy with the FBI.
I thought you were in Korea 30 years ago.
No, that was 50 years ago.
Oh, okay.
One of the benefits of being older, I guess. And the other law enforcement professionals from the Eastern Seaboard always cautioned, this was law enforcement executives, said, don't get involved in the garbage business because of organized crime. And they have a big handle on the garbage business in this country, whether we want to admit it or not. Now, I'm not saying they're here on the West Coast at all, but on the Eastern Seaboard, it's pretty common. And when we're talking about a $300 million plus contract that's coming up over a period of time, that really bothers me. And then we've got this China thing where all of a sudden they're not taking our garbage, if you will. We call it recyclables, I guess, but they're not taking that. I mean, I think the public in general is very much aware that there's a change coming to garbage. And I want to get the best deal I can for the citizens of Thurston County. That is ultimately my goal. And I think we've taken a pretty transparent approach to working towards an RFP. And I don't understand all this, well, what about Cowlitz County? So I agree with you. I don't want to wait for another jurisdiction that may or may not do something and may or may not have nefarious influences. I don't know. I don't know anything about what goes on down there. But I'm very concerned that we do the right thing for our taxpayers, and I'm hoping that I can look to our county manager to advise us to go in that direction. That's kind of where I'm at on this whole thing. I think for the public's edification, this is a bigger issue than what they might know.
So if I may, the contracts that we have right now are extremely complex. And our attorney, Rick Peters, we reviewed the terms of the contract for over a year before we came for recommendations to the board. It's close to 400 pages, that contract. It's extremely complex. As a result, this has been evolving over time and it results in extremely limited options the county has. As complex the contracts are, there are many options, obviously, many different perspectives associated with as to how the county should pursue that. And I just want to ensure you or assure you Here, I am not in the position to argue one way or the other whether an idea is good, bad, or indifferent. My obligation as a county administrator, county manager, is to protect the integrity of the process of this very expensive contract that you may be facing awarding that is going to be lasting for the next 20 years. And this is I believe my obligation is to protect the integrity and the transparency of this process, because ultimately you will be in the position to make that decision. And that objective will not change from my point of view.
We're not dealing with organized crime, though, as far as you know, are we?
Well, I'm going to make a statement on that. Oftentimes, you don't know when you're dealing with
we won't
organized
know.
crime.
No, we
and
won't
We
know.
wouldn't even know. And that's
Okay.
wherein lies the problem.
Everything?
And I'm not
Okay.
making any allegations that anybody is.
No,
It's just a
Proposed
big issue.
response will be on your desks, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, and then thank you for attending the meetings with Ms. Sinclair. Appreciate that. With that, so it's 11:25, and we've got, before we get to the 2 executive sessions, that will be considerable timely. Number 5 on this agenda is the White House White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, and this is coming up this afternoon on a teleconference or some doggone
Yes,
thing?
it's just informational. You have been invited by the White House to attend. There's a specific invitation to elected officials on the West Coast, I believe, some specific states such as Alaska, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, Oregon, South Dakota, Washington, and Wyoming. The event is going to be taking place in September 10, 2019, and it's interesting, it's only from 1 to 4 in the afternoon, 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
There is an informational conference this afternoon, and in fact, in an hour or so. And I don't expect you to take an action. It's something I just want to make sure that you're aware of this invitation.
Okay.
And that's it.
Just quick.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I had an opportunity to talk with folks from the Association of Counties, the Washington State Association.
Oh, good.
And Paul Jewell went on this trip last year to this function. And I explained some of the issues that we were faced with here in Thurston County that I thought maybe we could get some clarification or direction, or at least vent maybe some concerns. And he said he really did not think that this was the venue to go to, because you're going to be basically listening to some presentations by individuals associated with the White House, I guess. And I guess if we were high enough on the food chain, possibly there would be some benefit. But I had looked into this to the point that I thought, I wonder if this is worth going to. And I've decided that it's not worth my time going to. I'm going to try and work these different issues without going to Washington, D.C. That's not my favorite place anyway in July.
I read the email too and thought, hey, is there a, no.
Okay.
I
well,
agree. Ty, you have anything on that?
Anyway, if any of you have questions, Paul Jewell at the
Anyways,
Association of Counties.
I just want to
Good
make sure that
guy.
I bring this in the public forum.
Okay.
So,
I'll pass on this one.
so the last
Apparently.
before the last item, and
We'll
this
get
hopefully will be quick, although perhaps not. You received a request from Chris Patty, and is representing the Thurston County Union firefighters. They work for the McLean Black Lake Fire District. They have a proposal, maintenance and operations levy, on the ballot this coming November, and they would like to have a photo op for the commissioners. They will be using, they would like to, and they highlighted some of the key elements of his message. They would like to use this photo and their union social media sites and campaign information to help promote yes vote. It's a little bit different request. It's not a request from the McLean Fire District itself organization. It's a request by a union associated with the McLean Black Lake Fire Department. So,
Okay.
Okay, well, let me start with Ty, because it's your district.
Yeah, it's not only my district, but it's my fire department.
Yeah.
So I've already, I would love to support this, and if the board's not interested, I can we can reach out to them and find a time, but if the board is interested, maybe we can get them to the meeting this afternoon. Because, I mean, the ballots are out, so.
right, time is of the essence.
This is on the August 6th ballot.
Yeah.
I already marked my ballot on this one.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I just want to know more information.
I don't know the details. They haven't met, like the other one I brought to you guys, because I'd seen a full presentation at the Rochester Chamber. This one, I didn't really see it until I saw the yard signs around my neighborhood. So.
But you would like to have them come put your house fire out?
That'd be good.
Or if one of your kids fall or something.
I can see individually doing an endorsement type thing. Individually as a person, I support it, but as a board taking a stand on a ballot measure, I'm concerned about the legalities of such.
Yeah, that's
the appearance.
that
But then
would
we
be
have to tell other
different.
people, no.
They're looking to hire 8 additional firefighters because they've been losing staffing. This is what the levy is about. And again, I don't have any real other detail for you guys.
I would certainly talk to them because I'm inclined to support our first responders in most everything they do. I mean, not everything, obviously, but most everything.
So I will encourage the board to contact individually to this individual, see if you're interested in supporting that on an individual basis.
Okay, good.
Is that okay, Ty?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, now we're going to go into executive session. We'll start with the number 9 one. Yeah. We're going to skip commissioner items. So it's 11:30. We got executive session stuff.
Yep.
So goodbye. At home, we're going into executive